Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, let's begin our meeting with the closed session announcements from Trustee Scott.
Okay, so with closed session announcements, items B and C were not discussed. For item D, with respect to every item of business to be discussed in closed session pursuant to Government Code 54956.9, conference with legal counsel pending litigation to save San Marin versus Novato School District, Marin County Superior Court case, CIV 17022295, information only. Item E, with respect to every item of business being discussed in closed session pursuant to Government Code 54957 and 54957.6, conference with labor negotiator Chris Koska, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources, Employees Organization, California School Employees Association, also known as CSEA, information only. Item F, with respect of every item of business being discussed in closed session pursuant to Government Code 54957 and 54957.6, conference with labor negotiator Chris Koska, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources, Employees Organization, Novato Federation of Teachers, also known as NFT, information only.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's move along and approve our agenda. The agenda stands. We won't be changing anything. So we have a motion. Trustee Aguila is a first.
Adoption.
Second. And a second by Trustee Millerick. All in favor to approve the agenda? 7-0. And if anybody would like to make a public comment that is either something that's not on the agenda or something that is on the agenda, please fill out a blue card. They're out in the foyer, and bring it up to Gladys here, and we'll make sure you're able to speak before an item listed or not listed, and you have 3 minutes to do so. I don't have anything regarding consent, no blue cards. So does any board member like to pull anything off consent to discuss? Yes.
15B.
15B, okay. Personnel action? Okay. It's Trustee Mack pulling 15B. Anybody else? All right, so then I need a motion to approve the consent excluding 15B, the personnel action.
I'll move that we accept the consent agenda without item B.
Okay.
Second.
A second by Trustee Aguila, okay. All in favor? 7-0, okay. All right. The best part, like I always say, we have our school presentation, and Pleasant Valley is here tonight. Hi, Dana. Hi. Why don't you come up and
introduce what's going to happen this evening. So first of all, good evening. Thank you so much for having us. We're excited to share with you some of the things that we've done to promote a culture of caring at PV. Through our work with the P3 grant, as well as through some of the research that we've done on our own in terms of the social emotional development of kids, we've realized how important caring is to as a foundation for a successful education. So we cannot possibly hope to accomplish all of the academic goals we have for our kids without focusing on the fundamental needs of students entering our classrooms and their need to engage in reciprocal caring relationships with teachers as well as with peers. Kids need to be heard, they need to be respected, they need to be received, and they need to be known. So we do a lot of different things. We've done a lot of things to encourage that at PV, starting from, we've had Soul Shop, and Soul Shop has come here, and so that's a program that explicitly teaches kids how to be effective social emotional beings. And then another thing we've done is we've tried to decrease our suspension rate by implementing some restorative justice practices. So in our staff meetings, we regularly do things that will promote a culture of caring because it builds community and it makes everybody feel better. So teachers are doing a lot of wonderful things in their classrooms, and so I've invited 5th grade teachers to come today with some of their students for them to share what we're doing to promote a culture of caring at PV. So I'd like to introduce Liz Nelson and Tina Stone. Do you guys want to come up? How are you going to do this? Okay. Good. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Yeah, so we have brought with us some of our wonderful students to just talk about really the most important thing that I think we do as teachers, which is that relationship building. You know, our students need to feel loved and supported, and they need to know that we believe in them with all our hearts, and then all the learning can happen. But that's really the crucial part, and so, you know, teaching is really a job that you put all of your heart into. So we want our kids to know that, and we want them to feel that every day. And so starts in the morning with smiles and hugs, and it continues throughout the day, and some of it is more structured. And so we're going to talk a little bit about some of the more structured practices that we have going on in our classrooms to really nurture our kids and help them succeed.
Well, you want to have your kids and then we'll
Okay,
go. Yeah.
so I have got 3 amazing kids. I've got Celestina Gonzalez. Do you want to come on up, honey? And Cicely Grasso and Lola Cristo, 3 of my 5th grade girls. And Ms. Nelson has hers a little more formally prepared. Mine are just going to talk a little more freely. It's my first time in front of the board. Yeah, and then you guys can ask questions or whatever. Yeah? Oh, Emma. This is Emma Crazeball is here too. Wonderful.
Yeah, you can move that, adjust it.
Did I break it?
So one of the things that we do to make our classmates and others feel appreciated is so you know that Valentine's Day is coming up tomorrow, right? Well, we have this little decorating committee called the TDC, the decorating committee. And we have a couple plants in the classroom, and we have one right next to the carpet. We just cut out little hearts. We provide them for the class, scattered them under the tree, so kids could write nice things about others and hang them on the tree. We prefer them to be anonymous, so people know, oh, the secret someone is saying something nice about me, and it makes it more fun. So it's nice to know that someone cares about you.
So every Monday and Friday, we do these things called community circles, and that's where you get to talk about what you did over the weekend or what you're excited for and how you're feeling. Like, a lot of kids always say they're tired or happy, but it helps, like, kids can tell each other how they're feeling and their teacher. Yeah.
Another thing we have is so like on Mondays and Wednesdays we have like this thing called appreciation time where you get and Fridays you get to so you write down something that you love about the person, and then you get to all go around the carpet, and the person you're appreciating gets just to sit in the middle, and you get to like say all the good things you feel about the person, and the person can really feel like warm and happy inside.
So during class, we have a really nice environment. We have very nice teachers and students, and like they all are nice to each other and make it a very nice place to be at school.
Good job. Right. Good job.
So here are my 4. And one simple thing that we do every morning is I greet the kids at the door with the good morning and Then we all get in a circle, and we start our day every day with an I feel statement. So I always start with, I feel excited because I actually went to the gym this morning, or I feel sad because one of my children is homesick, so it gives them a connection to me. And then we go around the circle, and honestly, sometimes it can be a 2-minute circle, and sometimes it can be a half-hour circle, depending on what the kids need. Sometimes it's, you know, I'm really excited because I won my basketball game, and other times it's, I'm really scared because someone in my family is really sick. So it's an amazing opportunity for these kids to start their day saying how they feel, and there's always a rub on the back, or I don't know, it really brings them together, and it starts us off on the right track. So these are mine. This is Luke, Ava, Anthony, and Lucy, and they're going to tell you a little bit more about that.
Our class loves to talk about sports. Many of us are on soccer, basketball, baseball, and softball teams. It is great to be able to come in the morning and share our highs and lows from the games we have played the day before. We love to cheer each other on and give words of encouragement when our team did not do as well as we hoped. Some of us are on rival teams, and it is fun to bring a little friendly competition if we are playing a game against one of our classmates. Along the line of sports, we love to talk about the sports that are happening on major league teams and the Olympics. Sports are a very important part of many of our lives, and it is awesome to start our morning with the latest sports updates.
Morning Circle is a great time for us to talk about events that are happening in the world. Many times, 5th graders are confused by what is happening in the world around us. One major event that we have discussed at Morning Circle quite a bit is the election of President Trump. Our Morning Circle is a safe place to ask questions about politics and know that we are entitled to our views and will not be judged because of them. We also have had to talk a lot about our fears with guns. We have had some sad and scary things happen this year, and many of us have wanted to talk a lot about our fears and sorrows. These types of talks have only brought us closer together as a group. The safety talks are also important because they remind us of all that we are doing to keep ourselves and our school safe. Global warming is another topic that comes up quite a bit during morning check-in. It's always good to remind each other what we can do to make our beautiful, awesome world stronger and healthier.
Okay, so mine's about feelings. It is a good feeling to be able to come to school knowing that we will have to check in every morning where we have the chance to express how we are feeling. Our class has some life-changing events take place this year, such as deaths of grandparents, serious family illness, diagnosis, family moves, and loss of much-loved pets. When we start our day by reporting these events, it gives us the sense that we are not alone. We know that our classmates will be there for us by supporting us and not judging us because of our feelings. By expressing our feelings and emotions, we also have the opportunity to tell our classmates what we might need from them during the day. Some of us like extra hugs and check-ins, while others prefer time alone. Knowing what is going to our classmates' lives helps us not take other people's emotions personally. It gives us the chance to talk in other people's shoes and lend a helping hand when we can.
Morning Circle would not be the same without our class dog, Treasure. That's right, we have a class dog. Her name is Treasure, and she is a guide dog breeder. Every day she comes to school with Mrs. Nelson and is always eager to greet each one of us during Morning Circle. She likes to wander around the class until she finds kids that say hello by giving her a pat or a rub on her head. Sometimes she is so excited to see us in the morning that she runs out of the circle and grabs one of her toys and then rushes right back in to show us all what she has. We always laugh. Sometimes she will do a somersault in the middle of the circle and lay on her back with her head tilted to the side and her lip hanging out. We all crack up as we continue our check-in. Treasure always likes to take an extra amount of time by me because I smell like my dog, Murphy, and she loves it. I love morning circle check-in because of all the laughter we get to start off our day with by having Treasure. Thank you.
Good job, you guys.
Did you bring the dog with you today? Where's the dog?
That was really, really good to the students. Great job. And I commend the teachers for taking the time to connect with your students, because it just makes, and them being able to speak their mind and just take a moment. And before you jump into the math, the English, all the science, and connecting with your student is very important to this board. We've talked about it here at the board table, how important that is. If you're a counselor or a teacher, understanding what your students are facing that day or what's good or what's bad is a huge part in getting them to academically to move along. So thank you very much. It was really good. Thank you. Oh yeah. And we need a photo opportunity. So the teachers and the students who presented, come up and we'll take a photo. Did you want to say something? No. Okay, let's bring it back here to the board. Let's do some announcements. We have one student board member. Hi. How's it going? All right, what's happening at Novato High?
During our SAC meetings, my tangent, would tangent be the right word? My group is working on public transportation and how we can sync the Marin Transit bus schedule with our school bell schedule, and we've gotten to the point where we've contacted the head of the Marin Transit facilities, and we're going to have a meeting with her this Tuesday after the midwinter break. So we've made some great progress. The spring sports has started for our school as well, so I'm participating in discus throw and hammer throw. I mean, hammer throw, shot put. There's also people going for the jumps, as in triple jump and long jump, and there's people running for track. And our lacrosse teams are going at it as well. So spring sports is looking strong. Sophomore speech is soon enough ending. I'm presenting mine on the 26th, so I chose it as soon as possible so I can get extra credit. And it goes all the way to March 10th, so we're at the end of that line. And that's about it.
Great. What's your topic for your speech? What did you? Oh,
very cool.
Okay. Good luck with that.
No comments.
No comment. Trustee Miller. Trustee Nell.
I just want to report that I attended the District Advisory Committee meeting, and we had a couple-hour working session on the different things that we'll be including in our LCAP, differentiating it from the supplemental grant funding, and we're working on that local accountability control plan that will be coming forward to the board eventually for approval.
Thank you. Trustee Aguila.
I also attended the district advisory meeting. Also attended the Golden Bell Committee meeting, and getting ready for that event. So planning on that. And on Saturday, we all attended a retreat, and I wanted to thank Jim for allowing this opportunity. It's a retreat where we got an opportunity to talk about our personalities and how best we can we fit with the district and ourselves, and also we got to see how teachers and how all these even personalities apply to our teachers, our students, and it was very nice because it wasn't just about us, but we included the whole school.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Mack?
I wasn't going to report anything, but I'll just touch on that really quick. It's also important to know that we took the same test all of our freshmen are taking. So it's interesting to see, because my sophomore took it, and that was an interesting conversation at home.
Trustee Cooper?
I'd just like to report out about Marin County School Boards Association. We have on March 1st, we have a board leadership panel discussion down in MCOE, and I believe it starts at 6 p.m.
Trustee Scott?
Okay, so February 3rd, I attended the ROTC crab feed. Trustee Milrick was also there, and I have to say it was a very well-attended event, and they also had, which I believe may have been the MSA Jazz folks were there. I thought it was MSA, but they had music. It was just amazing. The food was great. They did a great job. I was just really impressed, and I really enjoyed myself. It was nice that I got to go. And as far as the retreat, yes, Jim, thank you. And I can't remember the lady that came and did the, yeah, she was lovely as well. Yeah, so thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for those who attended the crab feed. I'm glad we had some representation there, so thanks for doing that. I did the Novato High Open House, which was more geared towards incoming 9th graders. So 8th graders came and they did what they did last year, where they kind of showcased the program. So you were able to sit in and hear about MBI or the MSA program or the medical pathways field. So it was pretty well attended. I think there could have been some more people there. It was kind of light a little bit, but it was good. They did a good job of highlighting what Novato High is all about. Bite of Reality, I did that, and Trustee Mack did that too. That was at Novato High, and it was all the seniors going through the Bite of Reality, and it was a bite of reality for them. So, and then District Advisory Committee, as Trustee Nell spoke to, and then Budget Advisory I attended, and we'll be hearing that this evening. And the Hamilton Auction I was able to go to this last Saturday, and Superintendent Hogaboom was there as well. And that was a nice event hosted at the Peacock Gap Golf Club, so it was nice. That is it.
So I am excited tonight to honor one of our students, and she is pretty amazing, and she's sitting here. So she actually has 2 awards. So Liza, how do you pronounce your last name? Posilkin. Come on up here. So I want to tell you about 2 awards that she has that she's getting honored for tonight. But she is an amazing young woman from San Marin. The first is she was the first recipient of the Paint the Town Red Dietrich Stroh Youth Volunteer of the Year. I'm not going to have her tell you a little bit about some of the things she does. She also received, the Marin Women's Commission is proud to announce that in conjunction with the YWCA San Francisco Marin, San Marin student, Liz Posilkin has been voted the Marin Women's Hall of Fame Team of the Year. This is the first year of this award, and we're excited that Liza is the first awardee, as she is exactly the type of Marin teen civic leader that we had hoped to honor. So that's pretty cool that you're getting 2 first-time awards. But I'm going to let her tell you about some of the really cool things that she does. But congratulations on doing a great job in our community.
Thank you so much.
Hi everyone. My name is Lisa Posilkin, and I'm a junior at San Marin High School. Thank you so much for having me. This is an amazing honor, and I'm super grateful to be here. Couple of things I do. My main thing is the MidYear Goals Conference, which happens every year in March, at the end of March. So I'll be talking to you about getting that out to all the schools. And I'm the lead ambassador for that, as well as the only teen on the committee. So I'm the liaison between the committee and the ambassadors, and we really do a lot of work. We put on a great conference for teen girls to come, and we never turn anyone away, no matter if they have any financial problems. We try to reach out to girls in the Canal, in Marin City, because that's where we really need it most. And so that has just taken up a lot of my time, been my volunteer work gist. And I also am an intern in Assemblyman Mark Levine's office over the summer. And so that has been really awesome, getting into politics, because that might be a career path I want to follow. And I've been doing that for 2 years, and it's been great. And I actually sat in on a meeting with Superintendent Hohenberg last summer about Novato schools, which was pretty awesome to be behind the scenes of what I go to every day. And I just have loved living in Novato. Growing up, I went to Rancho, Sinaloa, and San Marin, and these public schools have really gotten me to be who I am today, and I just want to thank you all so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, Trustee Millerick.
Just as a reminder, Barbara Boxer started as a supervisor in Marin County. So there's, there's precedence for a long, successful career.
Trustee Aguila.
Just wanted to thank you for doing all this community service, and I just wanted to know about how many hours do you take? About 500 right now. Okay, thank you.
Good job.
I'm sure some students would pay to have those. Yeah. Can you transfer some of those? Getting down to the wire, senior year. Okay, so let's move in. I have no comments for non-agenda public comment. No blue cards is what I wanted to say. Let's move in our staff report. This is a report on progress towards district priority and goals, and Superintendent Hogewoon will be presenting. The board has a copy of a PowerPoint at the table.
Didn't think that was going to come up there, did you, Ross? Okay, so you all have a pretty extensive mid-year goals update on progress towards our district goals and priorities. So we are going to go through some of the highlights that we think of things we've done so far this year. So this will be a combo presentation from myself, Yvonne, Julia, and Leslie. So here we go. The first thing that we worked on for a long time, and it was nice to get finalized, was our mission, vision, and values. And again, you can see engage, inspire, and empower up there. And like I've said before many times, it's not something that we're going to be updating all the time, but certainly something at least every 10 or 20 years, it's a good thing to do. And education has changed dramatically over the last 10 or 15 years. And I think it's important for our community to know that this is a rapidly changing world, as our mission statement says. So engage, inspire, and empower all students in a rapidly changing world to realize their life goals. These really, the mission and vision and values, when taken together, why do you need those? Because it really is to cement what our purpose is, which is, again, to give our kids the skills necessary to be productive citizens, and that's our vision. NUSD will provide an innovative and personalized learning experience for every student in a caring and supportive environment, and you heard a little bit about the caring environment at the elementary school at Pleasant Valley, to develop the knowledge and skills necessary to be successful and productive citizens. And then the second part of that is to engage parents, teachers, and our community to actively support our students' growth and learning. And then finally, the 5 values that came out of our focus groups and all that were that we are innovative, equitable, caring, inclusive, and collaborative. So I think that's a great reflection of who we are and where we'd like to be. Certainly, we have some work to do to personalize our learning experiences so that we get to know our students better, and that's a lot more difficult at the secondary levels, and to make sure that we provide that caring and supporting environment, because our kids are growing up, I think, in really difficult times. This is a hard time, I think, to be a student. So thank you for all your work on that. Next, again, I think everybody's pretty familiar with our 4 district priority areas. Equity, our goals are really around increasing A to G rates. We really want to review our LCAP strategies to make sure that the things we're doing there are really helping to reduce the achievement gap. Student success, again, promote the graduate profile. That's really what we're all about, learning the skills and the knowledge so that students hit that graduate profile through project-based learning. And then our 2 main content area concerns were math, which I feel great that we've made a lot of progress, and also increasing our literacy skills. Staff success is really all about increasing teacher retention, supporting project-based learning, and also developing pilot performance assessments. And finally, community engagement is to increase student voice, and also to use the Youth Truth Survey to find out where we're doing a great job and where we need to improve. And so really excited about that. We just finished the Youth Truth Survey and the housing survey last Friday. So we're getting the results from the Youth Truth Survey next Wednesday, and we're already starting to look at the housing results. So we've got higher percentages and turnouts than we've ever had before. So it looks like the investment in Youth Truth is going to pay off, and we will bring the results of that. The other good thing about Youth Truth is they're going to help us analyze the results. So we can compare it to national norms and see how we're comparing, and they're going to meet with all of our principals, and we'll be preparing a report for you all about what that means. And with that, I'd like to turn over to Yvonne Chides.
Thank you, Superintendent Hogaboom. Thank you, Board of Trustees. Quick update on our goals around equity, specifically around English learners. Last year, I want to thank the board for approving last year the board policy around designated ELD at the elementary schools, 45 minutes every day. We're going to see a huge return on that investment and on that policy moving forward, as it's going to help us reclassify more students to be fluent English proficient, and also so that they have access, and this is where it fits to the equity, that they have access to the core, that they're really engaging with all students in all classes and all content areas. This year, another investment that we have is with Kevin Clark Consulting. That is a very thorough teaching strategies so that kids, again, are getting access to the content through this academic language and strategies that our teachers are learning. You see the numbers there of the amount of teachers that have been trained. We are going to start a 3rd cohort this summer, and eventually we're going to, as we reduce the contract with Kevin Clark Consulting, we're also sustaining it through coaching, through training and certifying our own instructional coaches. So again, that's another investment that we will see a return moving forward. So this is what we're doing with ELD. Next goal around equity is around cultural competency. This is one of our C's in our graduate profile. Our 2 partners that we have is Epic Education and National Equity Project. All the schools are deeply engaged in the equity work, focused on cultural competence. Through Epic Education, what we see is equity teams at all the sites, but also with equity plans. So it's not just meeting, there's plans in place. Last week I was able to attend at the county with Nancy Dome and with all of our elementary schools, where they were typing, writing, discussing their plans, their action plans for this year and for next year. So it's always great to put that in writing and then now implement. The 4 new schools are learning a lot this year. We have the other 4 schools that have been doing this work. So it's nice that now all of our elementary schools are aligned and doing the same work and speaking the same language. Through the National Equity Project, this focus is at the secondary schools through our equity leadership teams. It's focused on data, practices, and student voice. And what we're doing is, again, building more sustainability and capacity. We have a team of district and site administrators. I'm not sure if Dana is one of the coaches, so Dana will be one of our coaches that is being trained by the National Equity Project, as well as Julia. So we're building capacity and sustainability so that we can reduce these contracts and have our own experts here in our district. So again, I want to thank you for that investment as you made that approval. Now, Julia.
So we know one of our main focuses that's going to help us close the achievement gap is ensuring all of our students have access to math, particularly Algebra 2. So our focus has been around Algebra 1 in particular, but on how we can create courses that students can access. So one of the main strategies that we're looking at, that I'll give you some more details. I think there's a actual board presentation around math coming up in a couple months, are creating some learning targets for each one of the courses, 6th grade through Algebra 2, which will provide students with specific feedback on what they're doing well, what they're succeeding in their math class, and what they need to work on. So that's being led by Cindy Klinkman. Mars task calibration, so those are very open-ended tasks that the teachers all have been calibrated on. That's K-12, so that will provide us data that's a little bit more qualitative in nature so that we understand some of the students' misconceptions around math. We have a collaboration across districts that's being coordinated by an organization called Cali Ed Partners, and that has been a lot of the work that's been around the learning targets, as well as some of our focus around growth mindset and academic discourse in the math classrooms. And then finally, some of our work is structural supports for Algebra 1. I think Cindy Klinkman came to you in the fall and spoke to you about some of the structural changes we've made to the Algebra 1 classes to support increased numbers of students being successful in those classes. So we'll come back in at the end of the year with the finals. We don't look at mid-year semester grades for Algebra 1 because it's not apples to apples. So we don't have that data for you yet. We'll have some good data coming to you at the end of the year. The other thing that I just want to mention that is in discussion is using the MDTP, which is the Math Diagnostic Testing Protocol. It's coming out of Berkeley. It's been around for a long time. The teachers are looking at that as a diagnostic tool instead of the MAP. At high school, the MAP test, if you don't know this, is it doesn't provide you as much data as it could at some of the lower levels. So you would just get a whole list of all the skills students need instead of the MDTP is a little bit more diagnostic for the teachers. So that's something else that we're looking at to provide more data around math. I think I am the next one as well. So this is the other main kind of academic area that we're focusing in on, and that is our 3rd grade proficiency literacy. One of the things that we pulled for some data, we don't have the winter scores yet, and we are trying to show you at least the cohort growth. So you'll see that we have the fall 2017 3rd grade, so that's our 3rd graders right now, their proficiency growth over time from year to year. The big thing to note here that we still have to work on is that you'll notice that our white students gained 10% proficiency, so they're about 73% that are proficient, whereas the other subgroups, our socioeconomic disadvantaged students grew by 9, and the other ones by less than 10. And so that definitely is an area that we still need to work on. Hopefully with a consistent ELA adoption in elementary, we'll see some consistency across the sites and some of this gap beginning to close. Next one is Yvonne on dual immersion.
All right, we are very excited. Another congratulations on approving dual immersion for Linwood Elementary. We will come back on March 20th to give a more detailed report. Currently, our teachers are working with our consultant, Chris Lopez Chatfield from Chatfield Associates. She's working on the instructional model. We're looking at a variety of curriculum materials. We're very excited. The implementation so far is going smooth. This past Monday, we had our task force meeting. Great group of parents, teachers, administrators working together. Communication, we've done quite a bit. Right now we're doing school tours. Right now about 12 people or 12 families are attending every tour so far. Right now families are doing the intra-district. So as of today, we have 6 families who are opting out, and we have 10 families that have requested to transfer to Linwood. So that's a +4. I did notice that in the past 5 days, we've had an increase of families completing intra-districts. The deadline is March 5th. So I'm sure we're going to have a lot more action coming in with the forms in these next couple of weeks as we come to that deadline. This week we'll be interviewing for the 5th dual immersion teacher. That's also great news, so that we can start to get that person acclimated and oriented with our program and working with other teachers if they're local. And coming soon, we'll be posting the new principal position there. So more information to come March 20th. Thank you.
The next goal is in partnership with Marin Promise. So we started this work. I was part of the College Readiness Action Team is where this work comes from, and they narrowed down to be very focused on how they're going to have this goal met across the county. So basically what's happening is that we're starting with a cohort of freshmen who are our targeted students. So that means students that traditionally struggle in the schools are targeted with this project that we are doing. And all the counselors are involved in kind of following and monitoring the students. So we've created a transcript monitoring tool for the kids. And you'll see the student count. So those are the students that are in the targeted student group. So they're low income, they're Latino, they may be English learners, are all part of each one of those, the student count that you see up there. All of our students have completed a college career plan through the Get Focused, Stay Focused College and Career Readiness course. And then you'll see the percentage of the students currently enrolled in at least 5 A to G courses between the two schools, passing all A to G courses, C or better. Out of that percentage the percentage is based on the total number of students. So 86 is 52% of 166, you'll see there. So it's not out of the number of students enrolled in 5 A to G classes, if that makes sense. Enrolled in Algebra 1 or above, this is a higher percentage that we've seen in the past. We've been tracking that data for a long time, and at some point we were about 60% of students enrolled in Algebra 1 or above. We're doing better with that with our more streamlined process around who goes into that class or not, passing their math class, and then students above 2.0. So this is right now just our freshman students and what it looks like. Again, we still have some work to do here. You can see that it's still trending around the same rate of A to G passage that we've been continuing to see.
Yeah. In the targeted students, what percentage of the class is the targeted students? 166 targeted students, or 124, compared to how many in the class?
It's about 50%.
Oh, okay.
So about 50% at Novato High, maybe slightly less than 50% at San Marin. I don't know the total number. It's a good question. I'll look it up for you and send it to you guys.
Trustee Scott's got a question.
Yeah.
I'm just curious on the increased contact for students on the D and F list, or I'm just curious, what does that contact entail? Is that from the counselors? Is the contact including the parents? Can you just talk a little bit more about what that contact or outreach is?
So it is increased contact between the counselor and the student. The parent is not necessarily yet engaged in that conversation.
So is this before they've gotten the D or the F, or we're at midterms? Is this a midterm?
It's a midterm.
Thank you.
This data up here is midterm as well.
Grade.
So it's being pulled it's current.
Okay.
It's like active right now from the progress reports.
Okay, thank you.
Do we still do a paper progress report?
We do not.
Yeah,
And
we went back and forth with that.
Yes, we've talked about re-engaging in that, I know.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
The other student success goal was around FAFSA completion. Again, this was part of our work with Marin Promise. Proud to say Novato Unified took the lead on it, and we have very good completion of the FAFSA. It's a very complicated process, and we have over 90% of our students at both schools completing it, submitting it, and then you'll see the percentage awarded.
So how does that, can I ask a question about that?
Yes.
So, my daughter came home and said, oh, I know you guys have already taken care of this, so I'm not gonna do it. So she's not in that count, I'm assuming, because this is, what students is this? What,
This is for all students, yeah, because even if there are potentially some students that we don't feel like
One
would.
kid that didn't do it.
benefit from it, we're still encouraging them to fill it out because you never know what will become of it and what you might qualify for.
As opposed to the prior page, which was only a selected population.
Correct.
This is the full class.
This is the full class.
Thank you.
And to be clear, to define the targeted kids in the prior page, what was the targeting criteria?
It's the same targeted students that we focus on for the LCAP. So in addition to that, we do it by race as well, because we know that that's one of the big predictors. LCAP doesn't call out race, they call out English learners, low income. We also looked at Latino, African American students because we know they also are generally underperforming, and that's part of our equity imperative. So Marin Promise lined that part up with it as well. So we're moving on to the staff success priority area. This year we've made a few changes to the way professional learning happened across the district. We worked on a year-long professional learning approach where teachers could choose strands on what they would like to focus on. It was a rough launch in the beginning where we didn't have as many teachers happy with what happened, but by November, and it got cut off, is that second graph up there is November. You'd see that there was a good percentage of the teachers that rated it good or excellent at that point. The topics were all under the umbrella of graduate profile implementation. So the idea is that you could choose from everything from performance assessments to culturally relevant pedagogy to PBL. And internally, we tried to support all the teachers in making that choice. It's based on the research around how adults learn that they need to have coherence, meaning that it's something that they're interested in, it's related to their subject, its duration is over a longer period of time. So we were trying to move away from the one and done type of thing. So we found that to be successful. We'll see how well we can support that going forward. And now the final slide.
Question on that back slide, if you could push it back. So where I'm reading where it says learning opportunity, it says 192 responses. Are those responses all from teachers?
Yes, that's correct.
And how many teachers do we have in the district?
There's about 400.
Okay.
Yeah, so about
Just
half
trying to
of
get an
them.
idea of how many people actually filled out the survey and where you gathered your numbers.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good evening. So the last couple of years we've been focused on student voice, but this year we really made it a priority, and we partnered with YLI, the Youth Leadership Institute. Anna Salem, she's here in the audience over there. She's really kind enough to bring some of our student board members here to our meetings tonight. And so we have student advocacy councils at all of our secondary schools and also at Loma Verde and San Ramon, as well as having a district advocacy councils. At the district level, we have about 8 to 10 members representing all the schools. And that number 44 represents how many student meetings we had last semester. So we're getting a lot of input from the students. At the district council with the students, some of the topics that we've asked them about is communication. How do we communicate with students? And of course, the number one thing is, text us. So we're looking at ways of how we can gather their phone numbers so we can have the ability to text them. Not all the time, but in an emergency, I think it'd be something that we need to do. Another area is crisis response. How did we do at Novato High and San Marin during that? And so they had some suggestions about having some more informal spaces for them to meet and the ability to have some gatherings about with themselves. And so we've passed that on to Kelly Johnson to do that. We also had Sonia Heisters with Youth Truth Survey call in and have about a half-an-hour conversation with the students, and we had a really good brainstorming about how to get students more involved. And that you may have seen this, but we developed a short video that they did. It was really cute, and we put it out there. And speaking of Youth Truth, this survey has been fantastic, the results, and I just want to add that we've had over 5,000 student responses to this survey compared to about 1,000 at the last one. So I think, talking about student voice, we're really going to hear from students on this one, so we're really looking forward to hearing more about the results next week.
do students feel like their voice is being heard? Will we know that on the survey?
I think so. I think so.
We're listening to them and we're reacting to some of
Right.
the things.
Well,
They can sit there and they can select all the things they want, and then we don't react to anything, and then that doesn't help.
Well, I think Assad tonight talked about, I think that was the Advocacy Council that you spoke about, and how you were talking about transportation.
Right.
And so they're meeting with Marin Transit.
Okay.
So I think there
That's an
is,
example, yeah.
so that's an example of that.
The other thing I'll add to that in terms of meeting with the district youth advocacy councils, I've also today started meeting with the San Marin has equity groups, and I met with about 20 students today. Wes Swedlow started that group last year. So Leslie Narinsky started off with about 10 or 12 staff members 2 years ago, kind of at an equity club that they would meet, and they actually got some units from Sonoma State, and then she encouraged the teachers to have meetings with students. And so Kim, the math teacher, and Wes, the language arts teacher, both started doing that, and so he's continued on with that this year. And so what we started talking about today was, I said, hey, we're doing all the stuff at this district level, but I'm not sure that it's getting down to the student level. So it was really good to talk to them about some ideas that we're going to start meeting with them, because they meet every Wednesday. So we brought them pizza to make sure we try to get as many as we can, but I'm really looking forward to what they have to say about how we can create a more inclusive, equitable environment at the high school. So really excited about the ideas they have on that. And there you are.
Questions? Really appreciate a thorough mid-year update. I mean, it's very helpful for the board to not wait till the end of the year and get something midway through. Helps us justify some of the work that you guys
Well,
are
and it
doing
helps
every
us too. Thank you. We're the biggest goal that we're really focused on is that A to G requirements, which has been so tough. And so, we have our levels meetings on Thursday and ADCO with all administrators on Thursday, and we're going to be reporting out about that one in general in terms of with that. The hard thing again, without having data mid-year, it's hard to know. So it's kind of more informal checking in with the counselors. How do we know how our students are doing besides filling out the FAFSA, which is college stuff? How can we get those A to G requirements up there? So if we learn more this Thursday, we'll let you know.
Debbie?
Yes, Trustee Millerick.
So I think the A to G, tracking it and having metrics that you can actually follow on and correct before the period passes and not just get a after the fact report is great. When you take the students on and introduce them to the FAFSA process, which allows them to enroll and set their financial measures, which is a foundation for lots of items. There are families, so I'm concerned in first measure about the amount of student debt that's being incurred in the United States, which is bigger than the credit card debt. So, but with the FAFSA, there are grants and scholarships that are available to students that many go unclaimed year over year, and we have a family friend who got a full ride to UCLA because they found a grant from some obscure organization, and with good grades was able to get a full ride. That's happened in our ROTC. I want to make sure we're not only getting them through the numbers, we're doing the foundational work in terms of helping chase the money and building a stronger and stronger capacity to find those grants over and above just filling out the forms. Because filling out the forms just says, maybe I'll get a student debt, but what we really want is an education, not debt. So I don't know if we've done that regard, but I think it's an area, if you're not spending some time on, we should focus on.
Yeah, we'll check in with the counselors on that. I mean, I think there's always those horror stories of some, grant or scholarship that went unclaimed or whatever. So I think it's an ongoing challenge for our counselors to make sure that we get that information out there so that more kids can not just apply for, a loan, but get those scholarships. We'll double check on that.
And then Cindy Klinkman's, apparently we're making great success in the math world. That's great news. It seems like an area that needed some additional focus, and I'm glad to see Cindy's stepping up. That's wonderful.
Okay. Anybody else? And speaking to your, Ross, our College and Career Center is really for that, promoting the scholarships. I I think it could be a little bit, to be honest with you, a little bit better to get what scholarships are available. We get an email as a parent. I don't think the students know what the scholarships are unless they actually walk in there. Trustee Mack?
Yeah.
There is a lot out there. There is a lot of free money out there.
I think there's a lot of families that, there's families who understand that well, and maybe they're financially well enough off, they have had the time to go look, and there's families who are working so hard, 3 jobs, they don't even know how to go looking, and if we don't give them some helping hand, they'll miss the opportunity.
Yeah.
That's my concern.
Yeah.
Then, so.
Yeah.
The fact is, there are professionals out there that do this for students, for families, and that's part of the equity issue. You know, the families that can afford it hire people. The families that can't are on their own. And, you know, I don't know how we address that, but that's the fact. In fact, we did it with our oldest, to be honest. And it helped tremendously because it's very, very confusing.
Yeah, well, that's it. 10,000 Degrees, we work very close with them. So they not only help with FAFSA, but I think they help with those scholarships too. So they have kind of their targeted group of students. But I got it down and we'll double check on it.
Greg, thanks for the example. That's good.
Speaking of college and career, Mary. Come on up. Yeah.
Good time.
We would love to hear your insights.
Okay. Welcome, board. Thank you. I'm Mary Grillo. I work in the College and Career Resource room. Free application for federal student aid. We have every kid in October. Come in, apply. They can only do their part. They can't do their parents' part. We have been calling them in for 5, 6, 7 meetings. I will also send them a note this week that next week they better get down to 10,000 Degrees if they want help with their FAFSA. Scholarships, Naviance. You all said yes to school fuel. They're paying for it. They're paying a pretty penny for Naviance. And on Naviance, I have over 100 local scholarships. I tell every senior, get on there, download the application. Because I'm scanning them all because we have these wonderful Xerox machines, so now I can scan it. I don't have to run and make 10, 20 copies for the kids. The kids come in, I share with them individually where to go get the scholarship. I send them a careergram, I send their parents a careergram, all on Naviance. When these kids go to college, they're gonna have to look at a portal, so I'm trying to set them up to look at a portal on Naviance so that they see scholarships every 2 weeks. A lot of them may not pertain to them, but they have to read the instructions. Like PG&E has an African American scholarship. You don't have to be African American to apply for it, but you'll get one up on someone else to do that. So they have to read the instruction. Then I tell them, essay, transcript, letter of recommendation. That is a problem, the letter of recommendation. Because to go up to a grown-up and ask them, would you write me a letter of recommendation? What for? The kid's kind of freeze. They don't know how to talk to adults too well. Maybe the teachers, and they may have, they'll ask them. Then they have to ask the counselor. These kids hardly even know their counselors. They see them very few times. They're very shy about them. Today I asked the boy, why do you ask me these questions instead of your counselor? And he just said, well, you're here and I know you and I'm comfortable with you. So the scholarships are out there. A lot of kids are lazy. They need to learn how to do paperwork. And I even get kids that are undergraduates in college come to ask me about that. So I hope that helped you, that we are reaching
really,
out.
Really helped, yes.
Okay.
You know, Naviance is a big tool, and we've got to use it more to.
The kids have to use it more and more.
Yeah, you're right.
So
maybe that should be a homework assignment.
Yeah,
I go do workshop in the freshman classes, in the sophomore, junior, senior. So the kids, where do I get it, Mrs. Grillo? Get on Naviance and look. And then I have little instructions that I send the kids, not the parent, because I want the kids to do it. They have to learn.
Even mine's lazy. She doesn't want.
I don't mean it. It's work.
But I think it's work.
And
You've
they're
gotta
tired.
take the time.
It's work out of your normal routine, no.
Jim?
So you on Snapchat with these kids? Is that how that
No,
works?
I won't Snapchat because I don't think colleges Snapchat with them. They don't tweet with them. They send the kids emails.
Okay.
So Santa Rosa Junior College sends the kids emails. Well, where's my Santa Rosa student ID number? Okay, show me your letter, please. And I say, look down about here. That's your ID number. Put it in your phone because you can put in there, it's not your social security number. I don't think many people are going to care about your Santa Rosa ID number. So the kids have to learn how to read and take action and do stuff.
Cool.
Great.
Oh, you're welcome.
Really appreciate
Thank
it.
you for the lesson.
Yeah. Trustee Cooper.
Jim, I got a question regarding 10,000 degrees. They're on the campus? What is the schedule? Is it twice a week or?
I'm going to answer this.
Oh, you're going to, oh man,
Answer
Mary.
this one too.
Never mind.
I am so sorry, but 10,000 degrees is at Novato High 4 days a week. Monday and Wednesday for English-speaking students, 9:30 to 1:30. Tuesdays and Thursdays for the EL kids, but they'll help anyone. Any day, 10,000 degrees will help them. I help 10,000 degrees, so we work as a team. So they're there all the time. So if kids need help and I'm busy or they're busy, we all work as a team. Great. So I don't know about San Marin, but I think it's almost, it's pretty, yeah.
Thank you.
Question?
Right. Trustee Aguila.
Yeah, I have a question. 10,000 Degrees changed their name, right? To
Yeah, it's
recently?
been a while. It's
Yes,
still
it's been
10,000
a while.
degrees.
Still.
They used to be something.
No, no, but didn't they change it after that? 10,000 Degrees. Okay. My other question was, some of our people that want to donate money, and how do they go about to? And that's probably something that I can ask later in private. But how do they go about, or maybe they could see now, if they want to donate money
Scholarship?
through scholarships or
Start a scholarship?
yes, and or if they already have in the past, but they want to renew the form and it's on our website and it's not dated, just contact the district office.
Yeah, the college
or
and career.
college and career of
Mary
each,
Grillo
depending
or-
on which school.
Or Barbara Hernandez is the one at San Marin, the two college and career counselors, and then they can give them all the procedures to set that up and get it going. Because they're the
Okay.
ones that,
Yeah,
college and career are the ones who promote those local scholarships and the nationwide one.
and their phone numbers on the website. So I just wanted,
Yeah.
I just wanted people to
Yes.
hear because I've been asked, and so wanted
Yeah.
to be clear
We'll
that
take
they're
anybody's
able
money
to,
for
yes,
scholarship.
absolutely. Thank you.
Get my microphone back on. Thanks, Jim, for that update. School enrollment and capacity for 2018-19 school year. This is Chris Koska, our Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources.
This is a particularly exciting topic to follow that mid-year update. I'll make up for the lack of exciting content with brevity. So, thanks for having me. Each year, we are required to bring to the board an analysis of the capacity of our schools relative to the projected enrollment. We do this based on an analysis of our enrollment projections compared to the data provided in the most recent facilities master plan. We use this to help us understand where we have space to move programs or add programs. It's important to note that just because there is space doesn't mean that there are classrooms with teachers on those campuses necessarily that have space or that will have space. But this just is simply an analysis of projected enrollment and capacity. It's not tied to staffing. So this is something we're required to do in board policy. We bring this to you each year, and so I bring it before you.
This is a staff report. It's not something we approve?
Correct.
Oh, okay. All right, any questions regarding capacity and?
So the two numbers in red, does that mean students are gonna be moved? Or what does that mean?
No, it means that those are schools where we have enrollment that is above the recommended capacity in the facilities master plan.
And we may accommodate it by adding a teacher to that location? Or something?
What is happening there is we're looking at, we're maybe using space that we would hope would be used for an alternative purpose, like maybe a music room. We're having to use that for a classroom, and music would get moved to the multi-purpose room, for example, something like that. So we got a couple schools that are full. I kind of question the Linwood number. We got to do a little bit of research on that. That number doesn't make sense to me. I think it's because we have some other programs out there that are using some of our space that we could be more flexible with. Yeah.
Okay. Trustee Cooper, and then Trustee Mack. Oh, okay. Trustee Mack.
Yeah, I just want to look at this. I know one of the budget possible ideas in the second round of ideas is possible school closure, and I'm not seeing it there. There's nothing that's sitting out there that's blatantly low enrollment, and even if you combine them, it's still not that much. So that would be a challenge if we ever went there. The only other thing is Novato High. I thought they were bursting at the seams.
It's this. So this is the.
Okay, once again, this is the formula.
This is one of those mathematical formulaic procedures that, yeah.
Yeah, just to share with the other trustees, I know from that campus, every nook and cranny is used.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
Okay, I have a public comment. Aaron Fix.
Aaron Fix with NFT, but also I'm a teacher at Novato High, and I just wanted to also say that I think that 1450 is really tight, and trying to get 1,700 kids on that campus would be, I'm not sure how it would be possible. So, yeah, so that's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, if there's no further questions, we'll move on. This was a staff report that we get every year. All right, this is the Budget Advisory Committee. These are recommendations, recommended budget solutions, and Yancey is unavailable this evening. He is been gone all day and is just unable to get away from what he's handling right now. So Jim Hogaboom, our superintendent, will be presenting these budget solutions, which came out of the Budget Advisory Committee. Yes, he is on school business, district business. And you have the presentation at your table, everybody, and a revision to what was online, a revision to what was online and in your packet. The green sheet is a revision.
So the green sheet, not to spoil the ending, is the final list of recommendations, and the change is that when the recommendation to reduce district office spending, it said reduce district office I&I administrative personnel, and it really should be Ed Services administrative personnel. So that's the one change to that. Okay, so the role of the committee was to support the superintendent and the district in determining recommendations for budget solutions to bring to the district's budget into alignment. We kept hitting the three reasons why we have a budget deficit, which is flat funding from the state, declining enrollment, and huge increases in STRS and PERS. And we knew that we were going to have to make some cuts because, as everyone knows, a structural deficit for the past several years, and so making these cuts is always difficult, so we tried to get a good cross-section of people to help us make some recommendations. So we had 27 people that were on this committee. So we had 4 site administrators, 7 teachers, 2 classified employees, 4 parents, 3 district administrators, 3 operations managers, 3 students, and 2 board members. And so we didn't get 27 people every time. We probably averaged about 20 to 25, but had good participation. And one of the things we asked everybody was to try to take a different perspective if they could. So if you were a site administrator, well, what would it be? You know, try to take a student or a teacher perspective and vice versa. So I think we had a really good mix of people on the committee. The process was, we started back in October. So, yeah, and thanks to Chris too. Chris helped facilitate a couple of the meetings. Debbie was on it. Derek, who else was on it? Maria was on it. Was that it? Just you two? Yeah. Okay, thank you. So back in October, Yancey kind of did an overview of the budget, what's entailed with it. In November, he talked also a little bit about the budget constraints. In December, we talked about potential solutions, including what did we do the last time around in 2008 when we had to make a bunch of cuts, what did we cut then? In January, we started narrowing down the options, and then at our last meeting last week in February, we finalized the recommendations. In addition to that, we've been trying to have outreach on the budget deficit. Again, it's not like 2008 when we were going through going through a recession. Everybody knew we were going through a recession, and the whole bottom was falling out. This time, there's a lot more education I think we need to do with the public, because they're, well, why do you have to cut the budget? What's the problem? So I've done messages and a video. We've had town hall meetings in November and December. Fortunately, the IJ and Novato Advance have written several articles. We try to put information about public comments and budget solutions on the website. We've done surveys of staff, students, and administrators in the PTA to try to get their input. Had many discussions with PTA and PTO, with school fuel. So we're trying to do the best we can. Met with a realtor, so we've tried to let everybody know that we have the structural deficit that we need to address. This next slide is really to show what percentage of our budget goes to school sites and what percentage of our budget goes to other things. So just about 70%, 68% of our 80 million or 57 million goes out to school sites directly. Then you can kind of see the percentages of other kind of district things. So state stirs on behalf payments, 2.8 million, district office, 5.4, that's business, HR, superintendent's office. Maintenance, operations, and grounds is 2.8, student services 4.5, and then special education is about 11 million. So that just kind of breaks down the budget. So when a lot of times people say, well, cut the district office because it's farthest away from the kids, and that's what we've tried to do to some degree here. Well, that's just kind of showing you, well, where is that money? So again, 68% of our money goes out to the school site, which means 22% stays at the district level. So again, these are a little bit more details of our October and November meetings. So went over the purpose and role of the committee, reviewed the timeline, did the budget presentation, we brainstormed guiding principles, came up with criteria, did a little bit about history of budget solutions, and again, what were some budget constraints that we needed to look at. So these were the 5 criteria that we came up with. So number 1, try to limit the negative impact on student learning. 2, align with district goals and priorities. 3, reflect the community's values. 4, don't be afraid to make changes, challenge sacred cows. And 5, try to be objective and be data-driven, considering trends over time. So that's what we try to keep coming back to when we made our decisions. Then we talked a little bit about budget constraints, right? So, and I'm going to talk about a few of these, the LCAP, special education, and the parcel tax in just a little bit more detail. But sometimes we have employee contracts that limit us in terms of what we can do. We have to put aside whatever 3% towards routine restricted maintenance. The state required pension rates, STRS and PERS, we don't have a choice on that. There's certain state regulations or minimum support services, and then again, Measure G funding, which can only be used on facilities. So let me talk a little bit more about a few of these. and what kind of constraints they put on the budget. And sorry, this is a little hard to read. So the LCAP, when the LCAP first came out, you could pretty much do anything you wanted, but basically for us, the supplemental funding that we get from that, which is about $4 million, is driven by the count of our English learners, our low income, and our foster youth. So the guidelines are that that $4 million is supposed to be going towards strategies to close the achievement gap, which is a little awkward is what I would say, because we didn't get $4 million worth of new money to just say, hey, go out and spend these. So when we originally started, money like for economic impact aid, which was like over $1 million, we rolled that in there, which is money we gave to the sites. So it's a little misleading now, because initially we could kind of do whatever we wanted with the LCAP. Now it's looked over really closely by the county, and if you put new money in there, you have to show that that's somehow having an effect on students, and so it's getting tighter in terms of what we can spend that money on. The second one is the parcel tax. So just to be clear what the parcel tax says, and actually we had a meeting of our parcel tax oversight committee last week, so Yancey's been a busy boy there. So the parcel tax said, maintain competitive science, engineering, and math programs and protect the quality of academic instruction in core subjects, attract and retain high-quality teachers and maintain manageable class sizes, provide career and technical training and integrate modern instructional technology to prepare students for future success, and protect music, arts, library, and athletic programs. So that was what was called out specifically in the parcel tax, so we need to make sure we stay within that. And then finally, special education, the federal IDEA Act puts some limitations on what we can do. And then this other one, though, the maintenance of effort requirement, you must spend as much or more than the prior year on special ed. So you can't just go in and cut, $2 million from special ed. So those are some of the constraints that we have to deal with. And probably the LCAP, I think, is the most important one, because we can cut certain things, but if they're in the LCAP, I think the amount of money that we're cutting from the LCAP is $300,000. And Yancey really felt that $300,000 was the most we could take out of there, because if we cut things in there, like the instructional coaches are in there, consulting's in there, right? Kevin Clark Consulting's in there, National Equity Project is in there, Buck Institute for Education is in there. You cut all those things, and that's $300,000 worth of cuts. If you cut more from that, then again, and you still have to spend the $4 million. So you've got to put something else. You've got to put another $300,000 in there if you're taking through. You can't just cut. You get $4 million in supplemental funds. That's what you have to show. So there was some money that we moved out of LCAP, which had to do with I think class size reduction in grades 4 and 5. So that still fits. We can put that back in. But I'm just giving you an example that it's a little complicated in terms of some of those restrictions we have from the LCAP. The December and January meetings, again, we looked at our comparable districts and what they were doing. We looked at some budget solutions and brainstormed a whole bunch of different ideas. We came up with the first $100 million worth of solutions. Yancey did a January budget update. We looked at our demographic and enrollment study. We did a budget survey, of staff, the PT administrators, and students, and I have to say that, the survey gave us some good information. The survey was flawed to a little bit because some of the questions were a little hard to understand. In fact, we thought about going out. In fact, Fran's here. We talked about, redoing the survey. Should we go out, do it again or not? But I think the results that we got were pretty much in line with what we thought they would be from those groups. So in the end, we decided not to go out and do that whole survey again. It was hard to get a hard percentage. So I think the survey gave us some information, but certainly the survey was a little confusing. And then finally, the last thing is budget solution rankings to come up with that final $1.5 million. And I'll just say, I think, Ross, you pointed out last time that there have been different budget numbers that have been there. And I think the number that we're short is $3 million for next year. So just to be clear on that, the reason that we asked this committee to come up with 1.5, the governor's budget has an additional $1 million in funding, so that addresses $1 million of it. Because of declining enrollment, we will lose about 9 teachers just because we're going to have 100 fewer students or whatever that is for next year. So that's about another $500,000. So really he asked the committee to come up with 1.5 million. So when you add that together, the 1 million in additional funding from the governor, the $500,000 we're going to get from just declining enrollment in general, and then this 1.5 million, that's how we get to the 3 million. I just wanted to be clear on that. This next page is an important page, and I'm sorry you can't see it, but you have the numbers in front of you. Basically, the committee had a whole bunch of different ideas, and then we kind of voted and ranked which ones we felt were most important. And I'm sorry you can't see that, but I think there's handouts. Does everybody have one of the, you what? Do you have magnifying glasses? Sorry about that, but I'll read a few of them. So let me take that first one. So the top one on there says reduce district administrative personnel by 2 FTE. And then it says budget advisory committee tally. That means 11 people voted for that, so to speak. That would eliminate 2 FTE. And there was a range on that sheet from you could cut 1 district administrator, you could cut 10 district administrators. So he kind of took the average on these in terms of what that would be. So if we cut 2 district administrators, the cost of that would be, depending on who it was, about $320,000. That's salary and benefits total. And then where it comes from unrestricted or whether it comes from LCAP. Let me take the second one. So reduce, eliminate teacher instructional coaches. Again, 11 people said that. Again, there was ranges from cut 0 coaches to cut all of them. The average was 2, so that's where the $200,000 comes from. That's LCAP. I'm going to go through all these in detail, but I just wanted you to know that. So that left side was the initial list that went from the most kind of votes for it. You can see 11 down to 6. That means the most people felt that that was something we should cut on the left side. That didn't initially tally quite the 1.5 million. So you see the bottom there is 1.4,063,000. And then the right side is kind of the next ones in line that if the committee didn't want to go with that left side, these are some other things that they could have put in there anyway. So you have reduce the security contract with North Bay Security. That would save 50,000. 5 people voted for that. Increase the staffing formula for grades 6 to 8 by 1. Close an elementary school. Reduce or eliminate contracts, reduce athletic directors, and on. So that was kind of the next tier of things to cut. So at our last meeting, and it's difficult. I mean, making cuts generally means cutting people, and it's really difficult. And these are real people, so these cuts affect people's lives. We take it very seriously. It's not a happy thing to do, but obviously we need to do it for fiscal stability. So one thing I will just point out before I get to the last list is that after discussion at our last meeting, there was general support not to cut BITSA, which is about halfway down on the left-hand side. It says reduce support to BITSA, our beginning teacher support program, even though 6 people had kind of voted for that. That was only $50,000. Some districts have their teachers pay the whole cost themselves. Most districts do a combo where the district will pay for maybe some costs of it, like for the cost of your mentor, but you have to pay for the state, and those costs are rising. Tim, I think on the committee, made some pretty impassioned, hey, these are our new teachers, we should help pay for that. So what happened was that went off the list for the final recommendations, and what went on the list was reducing district office support staff and reducing substitutes for PD. So, and I think the total on those is reversed. So reducing district office support staff would save about 70,000, and reducing substitutes for PD would be 25,000. So we actually saved a little bit more money than that. So the final, because we took off 50,000, but we added 95,000 in cuts. So when we went kind of back and forth between the left side, if somebody didn't want something cut from the left side, it's like, okay, well, if you don't want to cut BITSA, then what should we cut? Then we kind of had some serious discussions about which ones on the right to put in place. So that page was pretty much the one we worked off of at our last meeting. And Debbie or Marie, you guys can jump in anytime when I'm done. So in February, the last meeting, we did define consensus. What does that mean? Consensus means a lot of different things. So when we talked about the cuts, we said thumbs up if you're in favor of the cut, sideways if you can live with it, and down if you didn't like it and couldn't live with it. But we did say that knowing that there were going to be harsh feelings and strong feelings about this, that we weren't going to be able to get everybody probably with a thumbs up or to the side. So we considered the 1.5 million in cuts that was generated, and we considered an additional 1.1 million based upon recommendations. So basically, the committee did, with thumbs up or to the side, move forward $895,000 in budget solutions. We did move forward an additional $613,000 of budget solutions with consensus. That meant not everybody could live with, not everybody liked it. But there were no other, when somebody didn't like it and we went again to that secondary list, there weren't any other items that people felt that we had broad-based support to move over there instead. So now to kind of get to the list. So I've kind of talked, the first one is revenue. So obviously if we can bring in some extra revenues, that means we can cut fewer things. So the first one was if we can increase rental income, and we think we can do that by about 60,000. We have that new Facilitron software program. I hope that's going to help and go through with that. So that would help with that's about 4%. The next area is district office, cutting district office and professional development. So as I mentioned, reducing 2 district office ed services personnel by 2, that's 320,000. Reducing the instructional coaches by 2, that's 200,000. Reducing our contracted services with Buck Institute for Education, National Equity Project, Clark Consulting, and all that, that would be 100,000. Reducing district office support staff, that's cutting a classified staff member at 70,000. District office department budgets, cutting like 5% from business, HR, superintendent, that's another 30,000. Reducing conference budgets by 25%, that's another 25,000. And then reducing substitutes for professional development is another 25,000. So the total of those cuts would be about 770,000. That would give us about 51% of what we needed. The next had to do with staffing. So the next 3 are increasing the staffing formula from grades 9 to 12 by half of a student. So from going from 29 to 29.5, that would be a loss of 1.8 FTE and would save 180,000. The second is increasing the staffing formula for the continuation high school. That's Marin Oaks by 2. So the Marin Oaks has low class size, which is what we want to keep them low because we want to help support those students. But that's still 17.5. That would go from 17.5 to 19.5. That would reduce FTE by 1. I still think that's a totally manageable amount that we could deal with over there. That would save 100,000. And then the last one is staffing closer to our K-5 staffing formula. So our current ratio at K3 is 22 to 1, and at 4-5 it's 28 to 1. We actually staff a lot lower than that. We do have, as I've mentioned, the lowest class sizes in the county, which is a good thing, and we'd like to stay as close to that as we can. But for example, I think when we staff, the staffing ratio is 22 to 1, and I think we staff at 20.6 or something like that to 1. So we're quite a bit below that. So what that's doing is not necessarily increasing the class sizes, but what it might mean is moving kids. So you might, Loma Verde, for example, if some kids come in after the start of the year, you might maintain that class size and move those kids to Hamilton. So it's not necessarily increasing class sizes, but it is staffing closer to our formula that we have in our contract. So I should say that the teachers on the committee did not like those staffing because they went back and said, hey, one of our criteria was to keep the cuts furthest away from student learning. And when you're increasing class sizes, that does affect student learning. And I think in general that's true. But I think that those 3 cuts come up with $480,000, which is really hard to come up with. So they were pretty vocal about those. Again, especially the one at Marin Oaks, where I think you're going from 17.5 to 19.5 is not going to necessarily impact student learning, and the same with staffing to the staffing formula. In high school, if you increase by half a student in 9 to 12, I don't think that's going to be a significant staff either. And I guess I will say, when we said, okay, well, if we weren't going to cut that, we went to that secondary list. We looked at athletic directors, we looked at all those other things, and there was nothing that had any kind of broad support either. And it just goes to show that making these cuts is extremely difficult. And but I think what is, well, let me just go over the last 2. The last 2 are getting rid of eliminating the middle school community day school, which is called Nexus which is over at the Hill Education Center. There's a classified para in there. There's also a full-time teacher that I think is 1.2. So that would save 135,000. We only have 5 students in that class right now. And those are students who have some pretty severe behavioral issues. So having them not be at Sinaloa or San Jose or Hamilton is helpful. But we just can't afford, in my opinion, to spend that much money on 5 students, and so those students would have to go to county community school. There is an alternative for them, it's just not here. And then the last one is reducing elementary gifted and talented education discretionary allocation. So that's not cutting the GATE program, that's cutting support to conferences and travel and things like that of $63,000. So that gives you a total of 198 in kind of program needs, and that gives you the total of 1,508,000. So again, budget cuts are always difficult to make. I think I support the committee's recommendations. I think that it's a good blend of making cuts of a little bit of revenue. Obviously, the more students we get in, that's also helpful. But I think it's a good balance between cutting things at the district office to a manageable level, but half of the cuts are there. Some of the cuts are in the staffing formula, and then some of the cuts are in the programmatic areas. And I think that's a pretty strong balance. So those are the recommendations. And the last thing that we talked about on the committee were these two things. One is based on the fact that we're going to lose another 500 students over the next 5 years, we might need to form a review of elementary school size and look at possibly closing an elementary school. If we're losing 500 students over the next 5 years, that's going to be tough. So the recommendation is take some time next year, appoint a committee. We've been through this before a while back with Hill. And you do obviously get savings from that. You save an administrator, you save some custodians, you save some secretarial. So there's probably about $500,000 worth of savings. I mean, those of you who've been here for Hill closing know that. It's always difficult to close a school because everybody's fine with closing a school until it's your school, and then of course you've been there and all that. So you all know that. So the recommendation is that we form a committee next year to take a look at that and make a recommendation for next spring. And then the second one is to perform a special education efficiency review. So while that would cost money, somewhere I think between $25,000 and $30,000, we would contract that out with either school services or FICMAT. And so while that's an expense, they could help us maybe with a way to reorganize special education, because special education, I believe, is like an $11 million budget. So if there's a different way to reorganize it that's going to give us some efficiencies, we'd love to do that. We did use them, if you remember, when Mr. Koska first came in and HR was frankly screwed up. And they came in and took a look at HR and made some recommendations as to how to restructure that department, which I think was really helpful for Chris. And to his credit, I think the department is running much more efficiently now and supporting our teachers in classified than it was. So I think a recommendation that we will bring back, if you approve this after the 27th, is we would bring back we bid it out and do an RFP and bring back and determine to do that. Then we would determine the best time. Would it be best to do that in the spring, or would it be best to do that in the fall? But they can come in and look at your whole department and hopefully give us some suggestions. So those are the two recommendations that don't really have anything to do with doing anything right now. So again, these are tough cuts. They're real cuts. They affect people and their lives, and I think that the committee, it was difficult, and I think people did a good job of listening to each other from all perspectives to get a balanced list of cuts. And I think really this does keep the cuts as far from the classroom as we can, given that there are some staffing adjustments there.
All right. Trustee Millerick.
Thank you very much, President Butler. Couple of questions and discussion items. The last time we went through this in the Great Recession, one of the things we cut was basically the funding for computers for all the business offices and also for the students. And over that Great Recession, our computers went from being a year old or 2 years old to being 10 years old. We were still running on the same machine. So all of that operational cost that we had saved in that exercise, we have now recovered some. We've bought some new machinery. They're more current now. But we've also made a plan to use the bond money to buy Chromebooks for the students, and the renewal process for technology is being substantially carried as part of a facilities program versus a yearly operation. So it seems to me that what was a safety valve then isn't available to us now, and I don't see you using it. So I wish Yancey was here, because I think he understands those issues pretty deeply. But so is that? That's my understanding, and I just wanted to get some validation. And if we can maybe cover that when Yancey's in, or you want to speak to it now?
Yes, I guess I'm not clearing your question. So yeah, you're right that we're using bond money to pay for a lot of the, not only student computers, but teacher computers as well. So that's all coming out of the bond.
Cut it out of the budget and save operational money like we did last time.
That's true. That's not available as a place to go to help cut, expenses.
Yeah. So in this case, so I just wanted to make that point so we can talk about it over time and think about it. In this case, the hole that we needed to deal with was $3 million. And as you explained at the beginning of your presentation, $500,000 is going to be solved because
Flat enrollment.
we had already planned on less revenue from the state, but in fact, we're going to need less teachers. And so you're accounting, because you have less students. So you're accounting half of that $500,000 is coming for a reduction in staff as a result of just fewer students to educate, so you need less teachers. That part I get. The other part, the $1 million that you spoke to, which is increases coming from the state. So we have sort of an ongoing conversation about increased money goes to step and column, which is an increased cost, but it also goes into a labor negotiation discussion. And are you saying that $1 million is now being put towards solving the budget problem and not available for a labor negotiation? Is really that what is that? I mean, maybe we need to be doing this at the bargaining table, but it sounds like what you said was that money's being used to solve our budget problem.
I believe that's correct, but we will confer with Yancey on that to be specific.
Okay. And then the rest of this, it looks like you've sort of shared the wealth across a lot of departments, and I appreciate the hard work of the committee. I'd like to thank them for that part. Thank you.
Trustee Scott.
Jim, I'm not sure if you can answer this, but I was reading this, and closing an elementary school on here is listed at 500,000. I would have expected that number to be much higher. Is that a firm number, or is that just somebody's estimate?
No, that's an estimate, and it's probably something like the principal, a custodian, maybe 2 custodians, the secretary, some operating costs of the school with, whatever it costs, electricity and heating and food service people. So when you add all those salaries up, it's probably where you come, and the, cost to heat the thing and all that stuff, operational things, that's probably where he comes up with an average of about 500,000.
I just would have thought that would have been so much more. I was shocked to see that that's a big thing to close a school. It's not something, I just would have thought that would have been so much more.
That's recurring also.
Yeah. It's just, I would have thought it would have been more. So I was shocked to see that number. And I'm sad to see that we may actually need to put together a committee.
Trustee Cooper.
Jim, thank you very much, and I really want to thank the committee for all their hard work. I know this wasn't a very pleasant exercise, but I did have a couple questions. There are a lot of good recommendations as far as keeping the cuts away from students. But with respect to Nexus, what is our ADA? In other words, this is representing a cut of $135,000. What is our ADA? We get only 5 students. You answered that, so it's not very much. Is it $8,000 per student or something?
Yeah, I think it's more. I think it's like 10 to 12 in there.
Okay.
But Yancey did figure that in there. So if we lose those kids, we lose that funding. He already factored that into the,
Okay, I think that's all I have right now, Debbie.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else? Trustee Nell, any questions regarding what's being proposed? You're good, okay. Trustee Aguila, Trustee Mack, any comments?
So I'm just going to, it's my first time through this, so
Yeah.
I'm learning.
Yes.
I'm always learning. So 9 FTE due to just general reduction in enrollment. Next year? Okay. And likely attrition or cuts?
Yeah, we are hoping to not have to do any layoffs. We're hoping that the number of retirements, which we've averaged, I believe, Chris, about 30.
Oh, wow. I didn't
We've
know if
averaged
that
about 30 retirements, and so we're hoping that the number.
I'm sorry, not 30 retirements, but the resignations and retirements.
Okay, yeah, between temps and probes, non-reelects and all that, about 30. So we're hoping that if we get that same number that we've been getting over the last couple of years, we'll be able to absorb the instructional coaches back into the classrooms, absorb the declining enrollment,
where I'm going.
absorb
Okay.
those people without having to do layoffs.
As well as the 4.2 that are identified in the staffing section. So where I'm going is, I'm hearing that that 30 is going to be our shock absorber for all of these potential reductions.
Right.
So, and this is where I don't understand the logistics. I know that in the old days, the bad old days, we had to issue pink slips. Does this trigger that? I don't know how that works.
One of the advantages of the early tell, and thanks to Aaron and NFT for signing that, is it gives teachers a reason to tell us early that they're going to retire. When we don't have that, some teachers don't want people to know, don't think it's any of their business and all that. But that agreement with our MOU extended that for 2 more years. So that helps us with 2 things. One, it helps us because if a teacher tells us, if a math teacher or science teacher or special ed teacher that we have a hard time getting tells us soon, we can go out early and recruit. And that's the best strategy to replace them. But the second thing is it helps us with this kind of planning right here. So we'll know by the end of February pretty much, exactly how many retirees we have. And based on that information, then we'll work with Chris and Yancey to determine whether we have to, if that's high enough number, then we won't have to do layoffs. If it's not a high enough number, then we'll have to do some March 15th layoffs notices.
What's our drop dead date on that, though, for those
You have to let people know by March 15th.
Okay. And our early tell deadline was what?
The end of February.
Okay. That's good to know. Thank you.
Greg, for a little clarification, it wasn't that we had to do layoffs. It was we had to announce 100 layoffs because we weren't sure of the impact when we finally only laid off 28. So a whole bunch of people got very unhappy because they were just being jerked around, to use a technical term.
But you're right.
Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, thanks.
Trustee Cooper, did you have? I'm sorry.
I did. I just wanted to circle back. I appreciate that. With respect to the first line item on your green sheet, increased rental income, how are we going to track that, and how are we going to make sure we know that that actually happens?
So if I'm not mistaken, Facilitron is a pretty cool system. It tracks all that electronically for you now. I mean, Judge used to have to do a lot of that before managing our facilities. Did you have something else you want to say to that? Oh, maybe Chris has a real answer. Okay, go ahead, Chris.
So Yancey has some other things that he's in the pipeline around using space, some agreements he may want to come to with MCOE about some space that they want to use. And there's some other things that are kind of in the pipeline that would be very specific to us leasing space to other organizations. I don't know the specifics of them.
And that'll be forthcoming to us? Okay.
But we're going to keep it all secret. Yeah, yes, it'll be
I know.
forthcoming
Well, let's
to you.
not have that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that would be important. I'd like to see, I mean, these numbers are numbers on paper right now, but so that's important. One more question, Debbie, if I could.
Yes, go right ahead.
On a report I saw from the January 24th committee meeting, it says one of the recommendations is to perform an efficiency review of elementary school size.
That's
the school
the
closure.
code for looking at closing an elementary school.
Okay, so, okay. Good.
Trustee Mack.
I'm just going to follow on to the income question because I agree the Facilitron system is going to go a long ways toward.
So what Chris is saying is in addition to the rental rates and things like that, Yancey's looking at some agreements to, with other outside agencies for programs.
Sure. So I would just ask a couple things because we have Measure G money. Can we please do everything we can to secure those fields down to keep poachers from just coming in? Because I know both football fields, they're getting abused by people just come in and use them. So if we could, I know it's at Novato particularly, it's easy to slip in. And there's some pretty easy fixes. Basically where the bathroom is, you just slide under the fence there. I did it once because I had to get out, but I was locked in. Yeah, but little fixes like that to secure it so that only real users can use it. And we talked about security earlier, and that's another issue. We need to help the administration to make sure to get the people off And because that's, I'll tell you, this spring, it's going to start happening. As soon as the days get long, around 7 o'clock, they're going to show up, and they're going to start squeezing out our kids.
So I think we need to pay attention to that more, but I would say that if somebody is using our facilities on if it's a organized, league of some kind that's using it, we do have agreements with them. You can't stop a group of, if 10, kids want to come and play soccer, I would argue that, we do have community fields, and I understand that we have a whole process and things, but, we're not going to be able to post sentries there on, Saturday morning at 8 o'clock or Sunday evening at 7. You know what I'm saying? It's just, we have a community resource. And so I get trying to watch it, but I also would suggest that we're not necessarily going to be able to turn the soccer groups or lacrosse or whoever they are. You know what I mean? It's not going to turn refusing them to play into some magical income either.
I get that.
But I hear what you're saying about the security.
It's a bit as well, and they don't really take care of our fields. They move goals around. They tear rugs. It doesn't help. The other thing too, and you've heard a bunch of this: more turf, more rental income. So we've got Measure G money for turf, and there's an insatiable demand to rent turf, whether it's baseball, soccer, lacrosse, whatever. But anyway, I just put it out there.
Yeah. Okay, so this was.
Do you have any, I would say you were, do you have anything you want to say?
No, there's not much more I want to add. I mean, normally we've been here before as a board, and it's been very difficult. It's difficult now. It may not seem like that, but, and for me, I'm content because I was on the budget advisory. I know the commitment that the group went through to get to these solutions. I thought it was very thorough. Yancey did a great job in making sure that the district and the community was well represented in that committee. And it was a thorough process that we really vetted the items and really were able to speak to what we thought was important to us, and then we came to consensus as a group. Yes, there were some vocal people that were not happy, but we made sure that their voice was heard. And we were able to reach that consensus with that. So these are difficult decisions for this board to do. We do not like to do this. We're in an unfortunate situation where we have to take these actions. So I don't think that we're taking this lightly as a board, and the decision will come before us on the 27th of February, which the board will meet as a special board meeting at 6 o'clock to bring these back to the table again. We wanted to have a first look here as a staff report just to kind of vet it and get our questions asked and bring back anything that may have arisen from looking at it for the first time. So we will come back on the 27th to make a final decision as a board. So if there's no further questions and no more comments from Superintendent Hoagland, we will move forward. I'm putting this item to, come on. I should have just asked. Aaron.
Knew it was coming.
Yeah.
It's not as bad as you think.
Aaron Fix.
Yes, thank you. Aaron Fix with NFT. Apologize for my voice. I'm getting over a cold, and so it's a little raspy. So I think there actually was some pretty good work done on this, and I wanted to acknowledge that. I think we can do more, and I wanted to also acknowledge and thank what Mr. Miller said about the $1 million, and immediately putting that into this budget. What that means is that there's essentially nothing on the table to negotiate for this year, and I think that's something that's a little problematic. So I think I'd like to see if we can revisit that. I also appreciate that it's difficult to take a huge amount of money out of the LCAP, especially in 1 year, and that trying to transition that over several years of finding to do that transition to get some of those excess expenses out of there and maybe more sort of crucial expenses in. The staffing increases are, of course, difficult. They are within contract, so that's a reasonable thing. Moving up some of these, for example, even from 29 to 29 and a half, which seems like a small amount in the high school, there becomes a critical mass where schedules become so inflexible that basically the master schedule gets gridlocked. So that is something to keep in mind, that it is challenging to get, you think, oh, well, we should be able to get 30 to 1 or 30 to 1 perfectly, but it just, it gets to a point where kids can't move their schedule. They can't get the classes they need. And then the final thing is with collapsing inefficient classes, that sounds a little bit like combo classes, adding combo classes. And again, just to remember that those are, they really aren't what's best for kids, for teachers. And so I understand that there's inefficiencies there perhaps, but it's also about doing the best job we can for kids, and those classes kind of don't really do that. So thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate that. Okay, we'll move on. That's the end of that item. Moving into our discussion action. The first item is our mutual proposals from both the NFT, Nevada Federation of Teachers, and the school district for negotiations, mutual proposal of negotiations for 18-19.
Hi, thank you. Had the privilege of wrapping up a tentative agreement with CSEA yesterday, and today I get to bring before you our openers to start negotiations with NFT. So this is one thing I truly appreciate about our relationship with NFT is that we bring these openers to you mutually. They're openers that we agree to. We work together to build this list. This is that year when a large portion, when the whole contract becomes open. And so there's going to be a lot of work for us to do. As you see before you, there's a letter that says that we're submitting our openers mutually. NFT and NUSD submit the following articles and associated exhibits for negotiations. And those articles are Article 6, probationary certificated employee dismissal or suspension without pay. Article 8, professional responsibility. Article 9, class size. Article 10, evaluations. Article 11, transfer. Article 12, leaves. Article 14, resignation and retirement. Article 15, part-time contracts and job shares. Article 16, compensation. Article 17, employee benefits, and Article 20, safety. And as the letter closes, we look forward to another timely, productive, and cooperative series of negotiations.
All right, there's no questions. Trustee Nell.
So it's a mutually agreed to list that essentially is listing the articles of the contract in priority, but I don't know, it's a leap year. What is there an official word for the broad opening aspect? I've forgotten what it's called.
Contract. Well, this is not the successor contract, right? The successor contract is when you do each year, I believe. So what happens is you negotiate a 3-year contract, and then at the end of the first year, you come back and you can pick 3 articles that you want to negotiate. In the second year, you do 3 articles that you want to negotiate, and the year after that, the 3-year contract is up, so you're negotiating the whole contract.
So I'm not suggesting anything, but I'm just saying that just because if we are agreeing to this list right here, are we limiting ourselves to the articles listed, or should we just see this as, for now, the priority, what we think we want to approach, but if something were to come up, we still have the ability to talk about the entire contract?
I would say that this does limit us unless we mutually agree to add something, and if we mutually agree to add something, we could bring something before you to ask for that. The other articles, we have numerous articles in the contract. Many of them are things that are in code and statute, really not a whole awful lot to discuss. Trust me, this is a significant portion of items to negotiate. Yeah, this is all the heavy hitters, all the things we're likely to need to discuss.
So that's great. It's a good approach. I just was curious how it works. So essentially, if someone finds something later on that's mutually agreed to, we can certainly discuss it.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, this is discussion action to approve these openers. Okay,
I'll second.
Trustee Miller as a first and trustee Scott as a second. All in favor? 7-0.
Good.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Before we get to the item that was pulled, we have one last item. This is an amendment to the superintendent employment agreement, and this is just in regards to the agreement that we've made with NFT, CSEA. The superintendent is entitled to the same compensation or the same as what those groups received, right? And specifically certificated management, it states in his contract. So we're just bringing this back around to amend his contract, because at the time when we did his evaluation, we extended his contract 1 year, but we did not adjust any pay because there was nothing, we had not settled yet. And so this is now coming before you.
I move adoption of the revised contract.
Okay. Trustee Miller as a first, trustee Cooper as a second. All in favor? Okay, thank you, 7-0. All right, and trustee Mack, you pulled item 15B. This is the personnel action.
Yeah, and I hate to be predictable here, but so in looking at the list of the coaches, and it just caught my eye. I noticed so many of the coaches, more 3/4 of them are walk-ons. Only, actually, maybe it's less. No, it looks like barely 1/4 of our coaches are teachers. And actually, I'd almost welcome Aaron to talk about it too. What can we do? What can we do to get more teachers coaching? Is there a problem that we're not giving them the time? Maybe. What's the issue? And pay?
And I welcome Aaron coming up and sharing his perspective, which I respect. I want to start by saying that we ask a lot of our teachers. You know, we have teachers working long, hard days, doing important work. You know, the stipends associated with coaching are not something you want to calculate per hour. It's work of the heart. And as we have, you know, teachers with young families, you know, there's all these things that balance out. So it's we would love to have more on-campus coaches, and I'd love to hear Aaron's perspective.
Yeah.
Please
finish.
Oh no, I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah, I just will jump right on there with that as well, that we haven't revisited stipends in over a decade since I've been here. So that would be something to discuss, because I know a lot of teachers would like to be coaches, and I think it's really what's best for kids, having that connection. That's why we maintained the athletic director as a teacher position, because that teacher-coach relationship really is very powerful. So that's something that we would be looking forward to talk to in negotiations. Thanks.
Thanks, Aaron.
And if I could just,
Yes.
I just, the only question I have remaining, and forgive me for being an old guy who went to school in this district, but when I went to this district school, all of my coaches were teachers. Now, what changed? We just stopped increasing the stipend, and just kind of the real value of it went down. We're asking too much of teachers in terms of workload. Just what changed since the 70s and 80s? I dated myself.
I get to jump in here first before Mr. Koska. I think two things. I think
I think teaching is a hell of a lot harder now than it was, to be honest with you. And I don't have any quantitative data to verify that, but
A lot of gray hair.
I think teaching is way more difficult now in terms of the content. Now we're asking them to teach skills. We want so much of our when we need them to be technology literate. There's so much that Common Core. I mean, there's a lot, that has changed, and I think it's a lot more difficult and demanding than it used to be. And then I think also as your workforce gets older, a lot of the coaches are usually younger, and they'll do it for a while, and then you get burnt out. I mean, I coached for like 2 years, and like that was enough. But if you've been coaching for 8 or 10 years, and every night, and you're not getting home till 11 o'clock when you got a game and all that. So as your workforce gets older, then a lot of those coaches say, I've done it for 10 years, 15, and I'm done. So a lot of times your younger teachers are the ones that end up being your coaches, because that's my 2 cents worth.
Yeah, if I could just add on a little bit to that. One of the concerns I hear from coaches is some of the challenges associated with working with the parents and the parents' expectations of coaches, and the complexity that comes with complaints from parents about playing time and all that other stuff. It just takes away from the joy of the experience, and it becomes about managing the adults versus managing the students and teaching about the game, and they don't necessarily want to deal with some of that politics. So that's a challenge that we face as well.
And I get that. It's just frustrating. There are so many newbies in here, and that's our kids. Our kids have to. It's like having a bunch of rookie teachers. It happens, but it's not easy.
Trustee Millerick.
Additional change has been the number of sports. We have twice as many teams playing now as we did 20 years ago.
And you're right, Title IX.
And so
that's a good point.
That's just put a bigger demand. And so when you see a certain percentage, if you measured that 20 years ago.
Yeah, I think you're right.
You're right. JV football and varsity football and no teams beyond that. And now we got soccer and lacrosse and
and girls sports in general, which is a great thing. Don't get me wrong, but it's just more sports.
So it's different times.
We'll eliminate baseball. Is that all?
You're funny. You're funny.
So I do want to make one additional point, President.
Yes.
On this personnel item, I would like to note that we're bringing on 2 confidential employees, Ashley Albertson and Sally Carbono, and that is a great addition to our team, both of them. And I just want to acknowledge
thank you for doing that.
The value that they're going to bring to our team, both of them.
Great. And thank you, Trustee Mack, for bringing those thoughts forward and expressing. All right.
All right, on this whole thing. One thing that it is a double-edged sword. So not only are we having trouble getting teachers to be coaches because they're fantastic when they're coaches, because they're on campus, they're with the kids, they have their heads in the right place. But as well, it's getting extremely difficult to find walk-on coaches.
True.
There's not many people in this community that can fit the time requirements of a high school coach. You have to be there at 3:30. Who gets off that early? So it's just really getting difficult, and we get what we pay for. So I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. Would you like to move this item so we can?
I guess I should, since I pulled it. Yeah, so I'd like to move to approve item, what was it, 15B?
15B, yes.
And I'll second that item.
Okay, and so Trustee Mack is a first, Trustee Millerick is a second. All in favor to approve the personnel action, 7-0. Okay.
Thank you.
That wraps up our meeting. So as I said, the next, it's a special meeting on the 27th of February, back here at 6 o'clock to potentially approve the budget solutions. To remind everybody, the school district and schools will be closed all next week for midwinter break. And then our next regular board meeting is March 6th. So this meeting's adjourned.